It's the worst of the CBC for December 31st, 2019, the show where I watch the CBC so you don't have to. And this will definitely be the last one of the year because it's a half day, so we got a chance to get home early from work and make a video about the CBC because today I was right. Now, the worst covered story and the biggest omission and what really needs to be covered is, I'm going to call this the most underreported, worst reported, ignored story of the year of 2019, and it's so fitting that this has become news on the last day, so I can give this kind of a theme. And this is the attack on the American embassy in Iraq by Iranian-backed forces, and what you need to know, because what they're not telling you or how they're telling you is wrong. So the CBC actually covered it as their first story, and good, and this is one of the reasons why I do this, because technically everything they're kind of saying is not false. Okay, so they didn't say anything that was objectively untrue, but they omit some key details, they omit some context, and the way it's said doesn't build the proper image, and they sort of rely on anti-American, anti-Trump heuristics, and then they bring in experts with clear bias to paint a picture that isn't accurate of what's actually going on. So, to recap, if you've been following the show and you've been watching all these episodes and you watch the Wednesday Night Uninterrupted and you're familiar with what I've been calling the Shia croissant and the protests in Lebanon, Iraq, and Iran, then you should have a better understanding of what's going on. But if you're just sort of tuning into this story now, here's what you need to know. Iran is not the good guys. Okay? Since 1979, the Islamic Republic has taken over Iran, and part of their goal, yes, part of their actual government in the government constitution, the goal of the Quds Force, this is like their CIA, their foreign operating unit, their special forces, is to dominate the world, institute a global caliphate, run under the Ayatollah Khomeini, like the supreme leader. Now, one of their methods, as described by the Quds Force, is to get cells of resistance, what they call them, of Shia resistance. They find where there's a congregation of Shia Muslims, because Iran's Shia, and they will arm and train and throw money at them to sort of turn them into a military proxy and then use them as political negotiation pawns to strengthen the Islamic Republic. So this is the Houthi rebels in Yemen. This is Hamas, Hezbollah. But they've been very successful in sort of creating what we call the Shia croissant. So the way it goes is this is their pathway to the Mediterranean. And it's Iran, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon. They sort of control all four of those countries. And one of the reasons why a lot of people who are so hardline in security, here's all the conspiratorial anti-Semites going to hate me for saying this, but the country that was against the Iraq war the most, other than Iraq and Saddam Hussein, was Israel. Because Israel lobbied America not to go to war with Iraq because they said properly that, one, Iraq is a buffer in the Middle East. Its sole goal in creation is to be, one, a buffer between Saudi Arabia and Iran. And if you pull that plug, Iraq is a majority Shia country, and if you're naive and pull that plug and you don't take over, like people think American imperialist, America isn't an imperialist country, so they didn't take over. They let democracy run, and then the majority of Shia voted for a Shia proxy, which was backed by Iran. The government was literally created by Iran, and then Iran took over. And this is why the Israelis are so afraid of this. Now, this spread because Syria has been a proxy of Iran forever, and Hezbollah is actually a part of Lebanon's government. So this is the croissant. And when Obama gave all this money to Iran, he freaked the Arab countries out. Like, he freaked out Saudi Arabia. And this is why the Arab countries are like, okay, let's stop with the anti-Israel rhetoric. Let's stop trying to destroy Israel because Iran's actually trying to destroy us. We need to destroy Iran. Like, Obama's Iran deal was World War III in 20 years. It's literally true. After Obama signed the Iran deal, which allows Iran to make nuclear weapons after 20 years, with no strings attached. In Tehran, there was a billboard put up by the government saying the destruction of Israel, with a mushroom cloud coming out with a countdown to when the Iran deal expired in 20 years. It's up in Iran. So they're not hiding the game. And Iran's openly death to America, death to Israel, death to the West. Like, their open policy towards Canada is death to all of it. So you actually have, and I said this, you have in Iraq, there have been Iraq and Lebanon, and now Iran. There have been massive protests from the people against the government being controlled by Iran. So hundreds, thousands of people have been killed in Iran. We don't know just how many the numbers are because these aren't honest governments, but thousands of people have been killed in all these countries by Iranian-backed security forces. And the people themselves are rejecting the Iranian government. So these are protests against Iran and Iraq. Now, the people that the Iraqi people are protesting are the Iranians. Now, one of the militias that got bombed because they had killed an American with their missile talks is like Hezbollah. Right? It was like one of the factions of Hezbollah. They did something really fun. We're like, we're going to translate this. In English, it means brigade of Hezbollah. And I laughed because, like, of course they don't translate Hezbollah. Because Hezbollah in English, his party, of Allah, God, party of God. Yeah, nothing to do with religion there. Yes, but brigade of the party of God is how you actually would translate to English. So Hezbollah is a terrorist organization in Canada, and it's a terrorist organization in the United States, and it's a terrorist organization in most of the Middle East. And they are trying to control Iraq. So Iraqis are protesting the fact that crazy Hezbollah, Lebanese people too in Iran, are in charge of their country. They're protesting these people. These people then killed an American. Americans killed these people. Now, the people attacking the embassy, like they're like, oh, the CBC tries to say, oh, they're people mourning. They're literally in military uniforms. Come on, they're showing the footage. They're in military uniforms. Like, they're not the Iraqi military. These are Hezbollah fighters. Half of them are in military uniforms. Come on, guys, look at the freaking footage. Look at your... And the guy they bring to talk about this, the expert, is Dennis Horak. And Dennis Horak was head of the mission in Iran. So this is the guy, the expert. And again, he wasn't abject lying about anything, but he was just misleading. This was the guy who was in charge of he was against the disengagement with Iran. He's been trying to open up relations between Canada and Iran. And he's a big Iran deal guy. And a big supporter of like the EU and their nonsense in Iran deal. And what they did is they never talked about the history of Iran and what Iran's goals actually are. And the fact that they've been launching rockets. Like, this is the guy, he actually wrote an article about how when Iran attacked the Saudi oil refinery, it was a great opportunity for peace. It was a great step towards peace. Iran bombing it. Like, this is the guy. He's had 2 articles published in the Tehran Times. When the Ayatollah likes 2 of your articles and says, yeah, let's publish this guy. Maybe we should say something about this guy as an expert. This is now the expert. He was Canada's former ambassador to Saudi Arabia, but he was kicked out of Saudi Arabia because he was too pro-Iran. So this is the guy they get on the thing. And okay, listen, I'm not advocating for like war with Iran, but like honestly, we're at some point of war with Iran because Iran, part of its government is we're at war with the world. Like, we're just going to try, like, part of Iran's philosophy is conquer the world. So, like, don't be naive. Let's not pretend that Iran isn't trying to conquer the world. I'm not saying we have to troops on the ground in Tehran. No, I'm saying, but like, we have to be honest. And when you try and reestablish relations with Iran, like Trudeau did, and you open up to Iran, what did they do? The first thing they did is they kidnapped a Canadian, killed her husband, and then held her hostage. Kaid Saif-Samani. He was just a sociologist going on. They say, oh, he's a spy. Because this is how the Islamic Republic works, is when you show a sign of friendship to them and respect, and they see this as weakness. And when they see, oh, that's a weak person, Trudeau's a weak person, we'll show him strength. We'll say, look, we can kill Canadians and take this Canadian. So do more for us. Like, this is how these nut jobs work. So yes, good, attack Hezbollah. And so I just want everyone to understand that the CBC, this is how they operate. They'll give you all the details, but they won't sort of connect the dots when they don't want to. And sometimes they'll connect dots that aren't there to suit their narrative. And like, they did point out that there's 2 different types of protests. Like, the protests against, the protests, good. What they did is they pointed out that the protests against the government are different than the protesters attacking the embassy. And it's good they pointed out. But what they didn't point out is how much more simple it is. The people protesting against the government are actually protesting against the Iranian government. So the massive protests you're seeing in Iraq are actually protests against the people who were attacking the American embassy. So yes, they're 2 different, but then they just didn't point out that actually the major protests are against these people, which gives you the full context there. So they mentioned that they're different. So yes, that's true, but it doesn't become an responsible reporting until they actually point out that these are... This is the real clash in Iraq. It's the Iranian-backed militias against the people in Iraq. So no, I don't want boots in the ground. I don't want some like war. I know some conspiratorial anti-Semites are going to come out here and be like, Israel, blah, blah. I don't have time for that today. But you just need to understand what's actually going on there, that it's a lot more complicated and a lot simpler than the media is telling you. It's the Iranians are trying to take over the world, and the most important part for them is the Shia croissant. That's Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, and 3 of those countries, Iran, Iraq, and Lebanon, the people are rejecting in the Islamic Republic. And the media and the European Union love the Islamic Republic because their goal is to kill them all. Now, I'm going to point out, I know this is going to go over 10 minutes, but I just have to say this quote because the leader of Hezbollah he's in Lebanon, Hassan Nasrallah. He has a great quote that I think is so fantastic, because they asked him, because he's a radical Islamist, he's part of Hezbollah, like a terrorist group, like ISIS but Shia. They asked him, what do you make of all these left-wing people supporting you for they want gay marriage and they want this and and it's all against Islam, but they support you. What do you think of that? And he goes, I don't know, but they're useful now, but don't worry, when the caliphate comes, they'll get the bullet as well. And this is what the CBC and the EU are, is they're just doing the bidding of the people who say, I don't know why you support us, but when the time comes, we're going to shoot you in the head, so have at it. And for that, the CBC gets a 9 out of 10. You know what? 10 out of 10 on the Ayatollah scale for today. 10 Ayatollahs out of 10 Ayatollahs. Mazel tov, CBC.